In this video, I'll be showing you guys how to do three things. The first one being viewport navigation, the second one being how to import your Minecraft world into a Blender scene, and the third one being how to import a Black Plasma Studios Rig V4 into your scene and how to use it for animation. And before you skip over the part about viewport navigation, if you're already familiar with Blender, you know what you're doing, is I will say that for this video, my user settings, my key map settings are on Blender 2.7x. And how to access that is you just go to Edit, Preferences, Key Map, and change up here from industry compatible or Blender to 2.7x, because I learned on 2.78 and quite frankly I didn't want to take the time to have to relearn everything because this already worked for me. So all my keybinds are going to be similar to the 2.7 ones, so that's what I'll be using for this video. And I have my screencast keys on so you can just follow along from there. Anyways, let's get started with the viewport navigation part. So the first thing that I like to show people is just how to access your camera, and that is just numpad 0. Pressing numpad 0 will snap you in and out of your active camera view, and how to move that around. What I like to do first before I move my camera around at any time is I like to select the actual camera so it's got an orange box around it, and then we use Shift F, and that's going to be our hotkey for everything. So just moving my mouse around, I'm able to look around the scene. Using W, A, S, and D, that'll move me forward, left, right, and back. E and Q is up and down. In order to move my camera faster, I'm scrolling up on my scroll wheel, and that increases the base fly speed. If I want him to move slower, if I want to get really precise, now I'm scrolling down, and now it's got a really slow base speed. And now if I want to keep this really slow base speed, but I want to zoom out just a little bit faster, I can hold down like S to move back, and I can hold down Shift, and that increases it while still having that slower base speed. So now if, say, I'm flying around somewhere, Shift makes me go faster, and then I can just do my regular WASD EQ. So that's all for the camera navigation. Holding down middle mouse button will just rotate around whatever you have actively selected in the scene, and holding down Shift and scrolling on your scroll wheel will make it move up and down, and holding down Control and scrolling up and down on your scroll wheel will move it left and right. And that's all the basics of viewport navigation, so let's go ahead and move on to world importing. So the first two programs that you're going to need to download are MC Prep and JMC2OBJ. Typed into Google just like you see here is going to bring you up to the sites that you need. Go into MC Prep on this site right here, MC Prep v3.3.0, that's the most up-to-date version, and we're going to look for the free downloads. We're going to go to the free download, and we're going to look for whichever one has the MC Prep add-on for Blender right here. So we're going to click on this, and we're going to look for the download. Oh, it's already downloading for us. All right, so now we've got MC Prep. That's all good to go. We're going to go to JMC2OBJ. We're going to go on to that site, and we're going to go to download the latest release. And I'm doing this all on camera for you guys, so you can see like you're not going to get a virus. The stuff is all safe. And you're going to do JMC2OBJ 119.jar. That's the most latest version. So now we're going to go back to Blender, and we're going to add the MC Prep add-on. And we can do that very simply by just going to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, Install, and then going to wherever we had it downloaded and just looking for MC Prep. And I've downloaded this a couple of times here. As you can see, the most latest version is the one that I just downloaded today, 3.3.1. So you're just going to double click on that, install add-on, and then you should be able to go into the search bar right here and just look up MC Prep, and you just click the little checkbox there, and you should be good to go. So now when you press N on the sidebar, you should see MC Prep. And what it has here is JMC to OBJ and Mindways. Mindways is the world importer that was taught in the old Black Plasma Studios tutorial, but JMC to OBJ is the more optimized and modern way to import worlds into Blender, and that's what everybody at Black Plasma Studios, including myself, uses now because it just saves on a lot of faces. Mindways, what it does is it imports every single face of every single block into Blender, whereas JMC to OBJ, what that does is it combines faces, so you basically just have less polygons in your scene, which makes it run faster for things when you're like previewing animation and when you're rendering things. So anyways, with that explanation out of the way, we're going to go back to our downloads, and we're going to look for JMC. So now that we have JMC running, in order to access our world, and you need to have a single player world loaded and with all the chunks loaded that you want to import, we're going to go to the ... and we're going to go to our .minecraft folder. We're going to look in saves, and these will be all of the different servers that you have currently on your world. So KD is my server for King Derp, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose that save folder, and what you would do is you would hit load, and that just loads your world. And using right click, I can just look around. I can see it scrolling in and out. I can see different blocks. I can see here like a little ruined nether portal. In fact, let's go ahead and just import that. So what we'll do is we'll just draw a box around it with using our left click. And what we'll do is we'll hit export. And all these settings should be fine. So just go ahead and hit export. And then you can choose whatever you want to call it. So I have mine set up in a JMC folder. You can just choose the export destination. I'm going to call this Nether Portal. It's important to name all your files so you know what you're dealing with. And there we go, exporting 100%. So we can just close out of that now, go into File, Import, and we're going to use wavefront.obj because we're importing an OBJ file. All right, and we're just going to look for our file that has, well, I'm going to look for my JMC stuff file, and I'm going to look for the netherportal.obj. It's important that we download the OBJ and not the MTL, so we just double click on that, and that'll import it right into our scene. So actually not sure what happened. Oh, there it is. It's over there. So, oh, this is actually a very teachable moment. I'm glad that I'll just go ahead and keep this in. So why it imported off to the side like this is because it's relative to the world origin. And if you go into your scene and it's like off to the side, sometimes you'll end up getting your scene imported like way, way off in the distance. And sometimes you're not able to see it. So that's why we go to View and we'll change our clip start and clip end. We'll go to our clip end and we'll change that from 1,000 meters to 10,000 meters. So that way we can see a lot further. And in case our world spawns like anywhere really far out, we'll be able to see it and we'll be able to pull it into the center here. And as you can see, the origin point gets really messed up. So if I'm trying to rotate it around and it rotates around that weird origin point, we can fix that very easily by going to here, clicking on Object, going to Set Origin and Origin to Geometry. And what that'll do is it'll set the origin right to the middle of it so we can rotate it a lot easier. That's if you need to rotate it. Usually you won't need to rotate land. So let's go ahead and just drag this down very close to our center point here. And this is where the MC prep comes into play. And we need to run the prep materials button. And what that'll do is that'll get all of our texture set up. It does everything for you, gets all the shaders set up, all that good mess. And we're going to uncheck use reflections, use principled shader. All this stuff over here should be fine. And we're going to hit OK. So as you can see here, everything got prepped. Things are looking good. But there's one issue. If we go into, and I'll show you guys how to do this in a later video in more detail, but basically what I've done is I've hit tab. I went from vertex select mode to face select mode, and I've selected on the grass texture here, and I'm going into shading. The issue here is that it sets specular on all of the blocks. And what that means is it's going to have kind of a plasticky look. So if we go into rendered mode and we were to put a light down, then everything would look kind of shiny and weird and not really block-like. As you can see, this almost looks like it's plastic. It's made out of plastic. So there's a couple ways that we can solve this. One, we can just go to every single texture, and as you can see, I'm turning up and down the specular here. Turning it down makes it the nice crisp texture that we want. Turning it up makes it the plasticky texture. We can do that for each individual texture. Or two, the other solution is to run a script that one of the other directors at Black Plasma Studios was kind enough to share with me. And in order to do that, we're just going to go into scripting, and we're going to hit new, and we're going to copy that script that I have in the description, and we're just going to hit play and hit run. So now we've ran the script. If we go back to layout and we go to our shaded mode, oh, look at that, beautiful. No more specular on anything. And just to confirm, I'll go into the shading. As you can see, specular is now 0. Specular 0, specular 0, specular 0. So that script worked beautifully, and now we have our specular issue fixed. So let's head back into textured mode here, and in textured mode, which is the default mode, in order to be able to see everything, you need to hit the down arrow, and you need to make sure that the color is on texture, because otherwise your materials will still look like this, and they look very ugly, not very nice to preview in the viewport. And that'll also mess with your rigs too. So it's important to set that on the texture. And one final note before we move on to how to import and use the Minecraft Black Plasma rig is to optimize your scenes, especially for those of you who are on potatoes or just really slow computers, is something very simple. So, oh, hey, look, we got a little crystal chunk thing there. I don't even know what that's called. Geode. Yeah, we got a little geode there. What are the odds of that? Anyways, so in order to fix this, get rid of all these unnecessary planes and stuff down here that you're never going to see, we're going to hit Tab. And I know this isn't going to make sense to everybody right away, but just follow along. And we're going to hit this button right here that says Toggle X-Ray. And what that'll do is it'll let us select through all these blocks. We're going to press C to do a circle select and scale up and down to scale this brush size up and down, and just hold down left click to select everything that you want to get rid of. So in this case, we're going to select all these stone blocks and we're just going to highlight them. If you highlight too much, that's okay. Hold down shift and left click and you'll deselect everything that you don't want to select. And once you've got a comfortable amount selected that you're not going to see, then just hit escape to escape out of that and hit delete faces. And now you've just cleaned it up a bunch. Now you don't have all those faces down there clogging up your scene and you can run a lot more smoothly. So in order to get out of this mode, we'll just hit Toggle X-Ray again. And now we'll move on to importing a character rig. So the character rig download is also going to be in the description. And if we just go to File, Append, and we look for the Black Plasma Studios character rig.blend, we're not going to append the object, we're going to append the collection. We want to select that collection and hit Append. And what that's going to do is it's going to teleport it to the very center of the scene. I forgot to delete the default cube, so we're just going to right click select and delete that. And so now that we've imported our rig, we can go up to our outliner. We can either select it from up here, or we can just right click it in our scene and we can move it around wherever we want it. In order to get it to pose mode, we can do this one of two ways. One, we can go up to object mode and switch this to pose mode, and now you'll be able to click and drag on everything and be able to pose it as you want it. Or two, the much faster way, and the way that I teach all my animators and tell them that they need to get in the habit of doing this, Control Tab, Control Tab, Control Tab, Control Tab. Look how fast that is. I'm not like object mode, pose mode. No, Control Tab. Learn your hotkeys, people. All right, so using Control Tab, that's how you're able to switch it from object mode to pose mode very quickly, and you're just able to drag it around, move it wherever you want, and that's really all you need to know. That's the basics of scene setup, character rig setup, and I'll go through a few things in the properties of this rig, but other than that, that's pretty much all you need to know for this tutorial. So if we go into the material settings, which is this little material looking thing on the top of the character, we head over to the properties panel and we click on material properties. This is where all of your texture data is going to be stored. If we click on pupils, we can change the right one color. Is going to by default change both. If you want to do different colored eyes, that's something that I'll cover in a different tutorial. But by changing the right one color, that'll change the color of the pupils. The eyes is just the eye whites, they'll change that. Eyebrows are eyebrows, skin is skin. In order to change the skin, we would just go here, we would hit X, we'd hit open, and we'd find the skin file that we want on our computer, and we'd load that in. So if I wanted to do something like derp, now I need to move his eyes, I need to change around his face a little bit, and that's very simple to do. So just make sure that you've got that top properties, materials, tab, whatever selected, and then you're going to press N, and you're going to go to, let's see, what was it? Item. You're going to go to item, and you're going to go to properties. And what that's going to have is all of your different settings that you need to adjust the faces, the slim arms, if you want to do that, set that to 1 or 0 for slim arms. All these are very self-explanatory. These are just all the positions of like the eyes, play around with those, get familiar with where you want things. You can turn on and off the mouth, on and off the eyes, on and off the eyebrows. That's all for optimizations. As far as the eye location or face location, you can move that up. If you're working with derp, then you want to do 212 and turn off turn off eyebrows and mouth because that's derp, and then he would just have that little textured mouth. But for everybody else, you're going to want eyes and mouth on. You're going to want everything basically where it was set at first. And those are all of your key settings for the rig. As far as facial animation stuff, everything over here will like control your mouth, just play around with different things, see what they do. This right here is the teeth slider. This right here is the eyes. I would just say play around with stuff, get familiar with things. Everything is very easy to understand. We've got some very nice new bends on this rig, and yeah, just have some fun with it. So that's all for this tutorial today. I showed you how to navigate the viewport, how to set up a scene, and how to set up a rig. I'll catch you guys in the next one.